This weather is insane. 100+ mile an hour winds, northern Colorado and Wyoming. And I just heard myself echo. Hey, everybody, Rex Bear, Leak Project. How the heck are you? Buckle up, Buttercups. Let's go. We've got a lot of news to talk about today. We're going to go rapid fire style. So I've got over 20 articles here to share with you. Everything from an MIT professor that was working on plasma physics, shot in his home. What's that all about? We've got extreme weather. We've got the Aurora Borealis seen in the lower 48. The most extreme hurricane ever smashes into Jamaica earlier this year. And now we're dealing with, like, I'm out here in southern Colorado. It's 50 degrees. The sun's out. Blue skies. It's beautiful. I'm still riding my bike out here. But if we go just north a few hours, the winds are so extreme that they're closing down highways because the winds are blowing over semi-trucks. So what the hell is going on? There's too many signs in the heavens right now. When I say the heavens, I'm referring to space. And there's too many signs here at home, as above, so below, to not pay attention. So I say be prepared, not scared. Let's get into the first article here. I'm going to pull this up. This is from the National Weather Service. And how's your day going, by the way? Are you staying safe? You staying warm? Hope so. Check this out. So over the past 24 hours, look at these peak winds. 144 miles an hour at Mount Coffin. These are all in Wyoming, as you can see. Red Canyon, 104 miles an hour. Cottonwood, Myrna, 85 miles an hour. Like, let's go see what happened in Boulder yesterday. Boulder winds. Check this out. Wind gusts over 100 miles an hour recorded in Colorado. So the weather is extreme. The magnetosphere is weakening. The sun is heating up. It's getting more intense. And we're stuck in the middle. It's pretty wild. But let's go to this article real quick. So an MIT professor and fusion scientist was shot dead at his home. Nuno Luriaro, 47, found fatally shot at his Brookline home Monday night, officials said. So what's the story with that? We'll get into that in a minute. Also, they did shut off power to many. This is from the Denver Post yesterday. Xcel may shut off power for up to 500,000 customers amid dry, windy weather in Colorado. I don't know if it was quite 500,000 in Colorado that they shut the power off, but it was a lot. Tens of thousands. Atmospheric rivers have hammered the Pacific Northwest. I've got family in the Pacific Northwest. Luckily, they're staying out of the flood zone right now. But we've got more atmospheric rivers on the way. And with all the satellites that are being launched into space right now, it seems like every day I read about a new set of satellites that are being launched into space for internet or, some type of top secret observations, because there's a lot of satellites, obviously, that do top secret observations. When I was just a kid, when I was like 13, I remember my uncle was telling me, because he was working on satellites, and this is 30 years ago, he was telling me about satellites that could take pictures of your shoes from outer space over 30 years ago. So it's pretty wild. But look at this. Orbital house of cards. One solar storm and 2.8 days could end in disaster for Earth and its satellites. A single collision could have catastrophic long-term consequences, the authors explain, and we would not have long to avoid it. Yeah, we're going to get into that in a minute. Trump announced a complete blockade of sanctioned oil tankers to Venezuela in a Truth Social post. President Donald Trump also declared the government of President Nicolas Maduro a foreign terrorist organization. This is where we get a lot of conflicting reports. One piece of news, one article will say, oh, we're moments away from striking a peace deal with Ukraine and Russia. They're almost there. Like this AP News article, EU leaders prepare to take unprecedented steps to help Ukraine at a high-stakes summit. Well, then, in other news, Putin calls European leaders little pigs and says Russia will achieve Ukraine goals by diplomacy or force Yeah, they're not backing down. But Ukraine war briefing, U.S. offers a NATO-style security guarantee to Kyiv. Trump envoys warned deal would not be on the table forever, but European leaders say it's still unclear whether Russia wants peace at all. Well, they want Ukraine. Ukraine war briefing. Peacekeepers could also repel Russian forces under ceasefire plan, says MERS. German chancellor says this remains a far-off prospect. Zelensky says negotiations on peace deal could soon be finalized. What we know on day 1393. Yeah, I doubt it. I'm not going to hold my breath on that. Now, this is, what? Did you see that? That was weird. I was going to show you an updated images of the suspect for the Brown shooting, but it literally just disappeared from my screen. So I'll have to get back into that in a minute. But this is very interesting, especially because this is referring to the Panama Canal, one of the crown jewels that the United States wants back under their umbrella. China is furious over geopolitical changes in Latin America. The Hill, we'll get into that in a moment. The Panama port still hits impasse as China makes new demands for its approval. Beijing threatens to block BlackRock-led deal to buy ports unless state-owned Costco gets a majority stake. It must be nice to be rich. Palantir CEO Alex Karp pays record $120 million for a 3,700-acre Colorado monastery that was home to Trappist monks for 68 years. Now it's his. The Maven spacecraft that recently imaged 3i Atlas and then went silent after getting data on 3i Atlas. So this spacecraft, this probe, was orbiting Mars for 10 years. Then it tracks 3i Atlas, and then it goes silent. It disappears. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. Could be. We can't prove yes or no, but we're going to get into more details on that in a minute. Professor Loeb has also classified a 15th anomaly on 3i Atlas. We'll talk about those in a minute. The anti-sunward jets, the gravitational deflection by 16 degrees at perihelion. Was that just from, sublimation? We'll talk about that in a moment. But here's one thing I find very, very interesting. So if you didn't know, most likely the Star of Bethlehem was a comet. So listen, and this is, I'm going to get into 3i Atlas in a minute because I think it's very important. So recent theories, particularly from NASA scientists, strongly suggest that the Star of Bethlehem was a comet, specifically one visible in 5 BC that made a close pass to Earth, appearing to hover or stand over Bethlehem, matching the Matthew Gospel's description of a new slow-moving celestial object that guided the Magi. This theory explains the unique behavior, rising, pausing, then moving slowly, that other phenomena like planetary conjunctions or supernova don't fully account for. Well, what about spacecraft? And it fits ancient Chinese records as well of a bright, long-tailed comet visible for over 70 days. Why is this important? Well, with 3i Atlas right now, I find it very interesting that 3i Atlas rotates 16 hours, 16 minutes. It has a 16 hours, 16-minute rotation. And this causes the object to change, like the brightness will change periodically. And some people refer to this as a heartbeat or a pattern of light. But the 1616 I find very interesting, and let me show you why. In the book of Revelation, now this could be just coincidence, folks. I mean, it absolutely could be, but this is still very interesting. So Revelation 16:16 describes the gathering. Let's read it real quick. And he gathered them together to the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. Then after this verse, there's a major earthquake that takes place. In Revelation 17 and 18, a major earthquake takes place. And I'm starting to wonder if there's going to be a major earthquake taking place shortly after, because tomorrow's the day, folks. Tomorrow's the day that 3i Atlas will be at its closest approach to Earth. Now, I've got friends and acquaintances that think this thing is a spacecraft. I have a very smart friend that is in aerospace, and he's a rocket scientist. He thinks this thing is potentially an extraterrestrial spacecraft or some type of retrofitted asteroid that has a civilization inside of it, maneuvering the object. And the guy's genius. So when he talks like that, I'm definitely going to listen. I'm not convinced, but I think it's very interesting. Also, Dr. John Brandenburg thinks that 3I Atlas is a spacecraft of some type. He's a plasma physicist, fusion energy expert, advanced space propulsion, also author. But Trump, meanwhile, Trump is rushing to build nuclear reactors across the U.S., raising safety concerns. A giant structure was discovered deep beneath Bermuda, and it's unlike anything else on Earth. It's a thick layer of more than 12 miles of rock that could explain why Bermuda seems to float above the surrounding ocean. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Then the Bermuda mystery is solved. Allegedly, 12-mile thick layer of buoyant solid rock keeps it afloat. We'll talk about that. U.S. lawmakers are investigating big tech's role, pushing up power bills. I read one report that electricity has gone up about 13% across the nation, and some people are blaming that on these data centers. Bernie Sanders is calling for a Bernie Sanders. I can't believe I'm even bringing him up, but Bernie Sanders is calling for a halt on AI data center construction, wants to ensure that the technology benefits all of us, not just the 1%. How about the 0.01%? The amount of water, pristine water, that is used to keep these data centers cool is insane. The amount of energy used to supply these data centers is insane. The amount of people that report being sick and not being able to sleep once they build these data centers next to their houses is insane. But we're continuing to build these things at an unprecedented rate. Meanwhile, pristine water is being used. So we're basically building replacement for humanity, and we're destroying the planet along the way. Is it worth it? I don't think so, but I'm not the one that makes the decision. And this is from WSJ, Wall Street Journal. The U.S. tanker seizure has paralyzed Venezuelan oil shipping except Chevron. Very interesting. So vessels are idling at ports or veering away from the region, but for Chevron, it's business as usual. A second near midair collision took place recently, reported near Venezuela, involving the U.S. Air Force tanker. That was a very close call. And let's talk about some good news now, and then we're going to get into the details on these articles. But Trump is expected to sign an order moving to reclassify cannabis and open up medical potential. The move wouldn't legalize marijuana, but moving it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 would allow the FDA to study it for medical purposes. In other good news, as of 2017, 91.3% of marine mammal populations listed under the Endangered Species Act were either recovering or stable. However, recent U.S. legislative and executive actions threaten the law's success. Scientists should demand that U.S. Congress preserve the integrity of the MMPA and ESA, argues the authors of a new letter to Science magazine. So, let's start from the top, shall we? I have notes. All right, so first we're going to talk about the Orbital house of cards and a solar storm warning. With the sun being more active and a weakened magnetosphere, more satellites in space than ever, this should absolutely be on the priority list for security. Scientists are warning that Earth's satellite infrastructure is far more fragile than most people realize. A single major geomagnetic storm, especially if followed by weeks of heightened solar activity, kind of like what we're seeing now, could significantly increase atmospheric drag in low Earth orbit. When that happens, satellites lose altitude faster than expected, forcing emergency maneuvers. Do you remember recently the Airbus A320? They grounded half the fleet, approximately like 6,000 of these airplanes, because their software had glitches when it was exposed to spikes of radiation. It caused one of the A320s to do a nosedive, and several people were injured on the plane. Nobody died, luckily, but there were several injuries. And so they had to basically update this software because of these spikes of radiation causing uncontrollable maneuvers with these aircraft in space. And I've told you before, this watch right here, I've got a Geiger counter built into this watch. And on the ground here in Colorado, it's at about 0.22 right now, 0.22 microsieverts per hour, because we're at higher elevation. When I flew from San Antonio to Alaska in 2013, it went from 0.06. It was either at 0.06 or 0.08 on the ground, totally normal. In the air, it reached as high as 4.2 microsieverts per hour, 60 times higher in the air. That was 12 years ago. It could be even higher now. Imagine being a frequent flyer or a pilot or some type of flight attendant and the amount of cosmic radiation that you expose yourself to, including, they just did a study on these airplanes where they have ultra-fine particles that people are exposed to from the emissions going through the filtration system. And that isn't good for you either. So just something to think about. But the danger is not just individual satellite loss, it's cascading failure. If multiple satellites are forced into evasive maneuvers at the same time, collision risk increases dramatically. This raises the possibility of a Kessler syndrome type chain reaction, where debris from one collision triggers many more. Also, China almost had a collision with a Starlink satellite, I read recently. Imagine in the future, it's not just about who controls the Earth, but who controls the atmosphere and potential space wars. You'd have, they'd be like sitting ducks in space. It'd be a really, really nasty event if they started shooting these things down. But currently, we have tens of thousands of satellites, many with limited propulsion, crowded into similar orbital shells. GPS timing, internet connectivity, military communications, weather forecasting, aviation, navigation, financial systems are all dependent on these assets. So one bad solar storm at the wrong time could ripple through global civilization faster than most contingency plans account for. And this article talks about 2.8 days. 2.8 days and complete catastrophe here on Earth if one of these satellites starts to cause that chain reaction. Recently, we've had the aurora out here visible in the lower 48 states, many of the lower 48. And that isn't just beautiful, it's also a warning sign. When was the last time we saw this many auroras in the lower 48? In 2003, we were seeing aurora borealis in the lower 48, but nothing like we are now. And it's getting more intense, more atmospheric rivers, more flooding, more earthquakes, more volcanoes are popping, and it all seems to be connected. I want to talk about the MAVEN spacecraft for a minute, because we've already brought up how the MAVEN probe, it was able to collect data on 3I Atlas, and then shortly after it disappeared. Well, this thing was launched in 2012. It made Mars orbit in 2014. So for over 10 years, this thing is working just fine. And then shortly after it makes contact with 3I Atlas, it goes silent. So what's going on with that? NASA MAVEN spacecraft, it studies Mars atmosphere and solar wind, has gone silent. It is now believed to be spinning uncontrollably. Interesting. Engineers report difficulty reestablishing communications and stabilizing its orientation. I wonder if 3I Atlas had something to do with that. They also go on to say that this is highly unusual for a mature mission. Possible causes include space weather interference. Oh yeah, like 3I Atlas. Gyroscope or reaction wheel failure, power system disruption, software corruption triggered by radiation. Oh yeah, by the way, did you know that there's a website? What is it? I think it's called the Polymarket website. Let me double check this real quick. Polymarket betting on disclosure. Yep, check this out. Polymarket is a crypto-based prediction market where users bet real money on future events, including politics, technologies, pop culture, and recent buzz around major markets like Maxwell's potential disclosures and Epstein-related info. Interesting. I didn't know about that. What I did know about, though, is this right here. Polymarket bets spike on talk of Trump releasing UFO files. Under the rules, the contract resolves only if the U.S. government officially releases previously classified documents, videos, or reports related to UFOs. A recent tweet by Polymarket declared a 12% chance that aliens being confirmed could be officially acknowledged in 2025, has stirred fresh debate around UFO disclosure. The moment gained traction as traders piled into a parallel contract. Whether the Trump administration would declassify previous classified UFO UAP files before the end of the year. Dramatic pivot for the contracts. Odds soared from single digits December 7th to as high as the mid 81%, according to platform data. Market watchers say aggressive purchases by a single trader triggered a cascade of confidence, hinting at possible smart money placing their bets. Oh, and I'm freezing up, aren't I? Gosh, damn it. Nano. All right, well, then I guess that sucks. Oh, whatever. So check this out. I'm going to take a quick moment and promote these amazing products. Gladiator Barley, Boomer Boost, collagen from boomerboost.com. If you use the code REX20, you'll get 20% off your order. If you set it up for auto ship, you'll get an extra 10% off your order. This is my daily go-to. They should call it Gen X Boost. Boomer Boost, Gladiator Barley, stuff's amazing. Just go to boomerboost.com. Look at all the amazing vitamins and elements, and how many amazing ingredients are in these products. Now, collagen's great for your skin. It's great for your hair. It's great for your bones. Get some collagen too. You'll thank me later. And let's get back to the news. Where was I? Oh, yeah. I was talking about Polymarket. Now we're starting to get, it's coming back. All right. Let's talk about 3i Atlas for a minute. Harvard astrophysicist Professor Loeb has identified what he calls the 15th anomaly associated with the interstellar object. The 14th anomaly is the object's rotation axis appearing aligned towards the sun, even at distances where solar forces should be weak. Under conventional physics, such alignment is statistically unlikely. Loeb does not claim extraterrestrial origin, but he does state clearly that known comet models struggle to explain the behavior. I'm going to see if I can pull this up real quick. Here we go. So check this out. This image was taken in Italy, December 15th. And he lists the 15 anomalies of this object. Make sure to subscribe to his Medium page. Where'd it go? All right, here they are. We've got the retrograde trajectory aligned within 5 degrees of the elliptic plane of the planets around the sun, probability of 0.2%. The arrival time of 3i Atlas was fine-tuned to bring it within 29 to 54 million kilometers from Mars and Jupiter, and unobservable from Earth at perihelion. The forecasted peri-Jove distance of 3i Atlas during its encounter with Jupiter on March 16th, close to Jupiter's Hill radius. This match includes the non-gravitational acceleration as it went near perihelion. This rare coincidence might mean that 3i Atlas intends to release technological devices at Jupiter's Lagrange points. See, because when it actually did that perihelion flyby, it moved just enough to be within Jupiter's Lagrange points. Now, that's an ideal location if you wanted to release probes and you wanted it trapped within Jupiter's gravitation, not the sun's. That's what that is referring to. The analysis of the Hubble Space Telescope image from July 21st suggests the anti-tail before perihelion must have been in the form of a tightly collimated jet that is about 10 times longer than it is wide. This is similar to the tight collimation observed in the latest post-perihelion images. At large distances, the rotation axis of 3I Atlas was aligned to within 8 degrees with the sunward direction when it entered the solar system. The probability is 0.5%. The observed wobble of pre-perihelion jet in the direction of the sun requires the base of the jet to be within 8 degrees from the sun-facing pole, probability of 0.5%. The existence of a prominent jet towards the sun on the way of 3I Atlas out of the solar system requires a similar coincidence near the opposite pole of the rotation axis. The fact that a tightly collimated jet appears as the sunward antitail both before and after perihelion, while reversing direction at perihelion relative to the direction of motion, has a tiny probability of occurring at random equal to the square of 0.5% or 0.0000025%. The launch base of the post-perihelion anti-gel jet resided on the night side of 3I Atlas before perihelion, and the base of the pre-perihelion anti-tail jet is now on the night side of 3I Atlas after perihelion. For these bases to be active only when facing the sun, they must be well insulated on the night side for a period longer than several months. However, heat would naturally flow by conduction throughout the body of a natural comet, making this insulation requirement difficult to satisfy. The gravitational deflection of 3I Atlas by 16 degrees at perihelion is exactly twice the opening angle of the anti-tail jet. This coincidence allows the wobbling jet around the rotation axis to generate an anti-tail in the direction of the sun before perihelion and a counter jet on the opposite pole after perihelion, with the jet opening angle of 8 degrees on both poles. 3I Atlas arrived from a direction coincident with the radio wow signal to within 9 degrees, and a probability of that is 0.6%. Now let's talk about the composition. The gas plume surrounding 3I Atlas contains much more nickel than iron. Just so you know, oh yeah, I found a new paper. I want to share this new paper that I found with you guys and gals on 3I Atlas because it's very, very interesting. Here it is. I'm going to pull this up on the computer real quick. Spectrophotometric evidence for a metal bearing carbonaceous and pristine interstellar comet. Check this out. Three I Atlas is only the second confirmed cometary object known to enter the solar system from interstellar space. It's actually the third. Cosmogenic considerations suggest that the body may possess relatively high tensile strength and a substantial metal fraction. We present photometric observations along its inbound trajectory towards perihelion, together with a spectroscopic comparison to pristine carbonaceous chondrites from the NASA Antarctic collection. The spectral similarities indicate that 3I Atlas may be a primitive carbonaceous object, like enriched in native metal and undergoing significant aqueous alteration during its approach to the sun, experiencing chirovolcanism, as we could expect for a pristine trans-Neptunian object. We propose that the combination of elevated metal abundance and abundant water ice can account for the unusual coma morphology and chemical products reported to date. To do so, corrosion of fine-grained metal grains can originate energetic Fischer-Tropsch reactions, generating specific chemical products into the coma that are not so common in other comets because most of them formed in the outer solar system and didn't inherited so much metal. Interstellar objects such as 3I Atlas provide rare opportunities to investigate physical and chemical processes in distant minor bodies of our own solar system, including trans-Neptunian objects and Oort cloud comets. Interesting. So what else is very interesting about this is the composition of nickel to iron. Very little iron, but a ton of nickel. So the reason that is interesting is the type of nickel that is observed is actually something that has to be produced by industry here at home. So they have a chemical process, a process that makes this nickel alloy. And this nickel alloy is actually ideal for applications, for space travel, for protection from cosmic radiation, etc. So the same type of nickel that we make here with an industrial application, it is not found naturally here on Earth, is prominent with this object. And I find that very, very interesting. Doesn't mean it's a spacecraft, but it is extremely bizarre, extremely bizarre. So just thought I would point that out. Let's go back to, where are we at here? Boom. Yeah, so that would be number 11. The gas plume surrounding 3I Atlas contains much more nickel than iron, is found in industrial produced nickel alloys, and a nickel to cyanide ratio that is orders of magnitude larger than for thousands of known comets, including 2I Borisov, which was the second interstellar object that we observed. Now, there's probably been countless interstellar objects that have traveled through our solar system, but now that we have the technologies to observe more of these, we will continue to find more of these objects. It's also interesting that Steven Spielberg is coming out with another movie on extraterrestrials and disclosure. It's been years since he has. And, you know, like back in the day, E.T., classic film. And then what was the other one that came out where Devil's Tower is a big part of it? That film title is... what is it called? Help me out here. Anyway, let's get back to this. The gas plume surrounding 3I Atlas contains the gas plume surrounding 3I Atlas contains only 4% water by mass, whereas water is a dominant constituent in familiar solar system comets. The plume might have resulted from the sunlight releasing the ices and dust that accumulated on the surface of a technological object during its journey through cold, dense clouds of the interstellar medium. Did you hear? Now, I haven't confirmed this yet. Close encounter of the third kind. Thank you. I can't. Wow. Let me take another sip of coffee here. Dun, 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 dun. Allegedly, rumor has it that Spielberg talked with President Reagan before that film, and Reagan said everything was true. Now, this is just an urban legend. I haven't been able to confirm this, but I find that very interesting, and it's a cool urban legend, even if it's not real. Where are we? The nucleus of 3I Atlas is much more massive than Oumuamua and Borisov. It's also moving much faster. There might not be enough rocky material in interstellar space to deliver a natural iceberg of this mass once per decade to the inner solar system. That suggests 3I Atlas may have targeted the inner solar system rather than being drawn at random from the reservoir of interstellar icebergs. 3I Atlas shows extreme negative polarization, unprecedented for all known comets, including 2I Borisov. This unusual polarization may be related to its unusual antitail. Near perihelion, 3I Atlas brightened faster than any known comet and was bluer than the sun. So it's important to keep in mind that other technological civilizations could have used the foundation of a natural object to plant technological devices within it. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about for a minute, because I find that very interesting. So I brought up this synchronicity that I had the other day. Like, talk about the universe talking to me. Star Trek, Brave New Worlds. It's the newest Star Trek series. It's on season 3 now. I think it's done 3 seasons. Well, I was watching it a couple years back. I made it to episode 8, and then I stopped watching it for a couple of years. Well, I decided to start watching it again a couple of days ago. So I went back. I skipped episode 9 for some reason, and I went to episode 10. Episode 10 in Star Trek was all about time travel. It was about the astro. There was a part where there was a civilization that retrofitted an asteroid, and there was also a comet. And a war that started with all of these events taking place. So we had war, asteroids being retrofitted, and a comet as the precursor to war. All of this on episode 10, Star Trek. And I just decided to start watching it again after taking almost 2 years off. And that was after I saw Greg Allison on the Weather Channel, same day. And Greg and I had some amazing synchronicities when we did the TV shoot for Weird Earth on the Weather Channel back in 2020. So all these synchronicities happened that same day. And I thought, okay, there's way too much here for this to just be a coincidence. It's also very odd that the International Asteroid Warning Network is conducting a planetary defense campaign to collect as much data as possible on 3i Atlas. That is very odd. Why did they pick 3i Atlas? And why won't they show us the high resolution images of 3i Atlas? How come everything they show us is fuzzy? I have better images of 3i Atlas that I have seen from a $600 telescope, an amateur telescope. Now, some of the stuff that we're seeing now, let me see if I can pull up some really nice images of 3i Atlas that are ground-based. Pull this up real quick. Am I freezing up again? Oh. Of course, freeze up right when I'm live streaming. Thank you, Starlink. Here it is. Check this out. Three Eye Atlas from Dan Bartlett, California. The coma is green. There's a blue tail and anti-tail, and this is from a 2-hour exposure. Nice job. Very impressed with that. Very impressive. You can see the anti-tail and the tail. So it's nice that we have some amateur images of the comet. But here's what I found also extremely interesting. And I'll just pull this. I'll do a screen share on this as well. So as I was mentioning earlier, there's a very strong possibility that the Star of Bethlehem was actually a comet. That would explain its unique behavior, and ancient Chinese records of a bright, long-tailed comet visible for over 70 days correlate with the Star of Bethlehem. But why I find that interesting is the timing of 3i Atlas. The timing of 3i Atlas right now, when the world is so close to world war. I mean, we've got war and skirmishes with Thailand and Cambodia, Russia, Ukraine, potential for Japan to enter a war with China if China decides to attempt to take back Taiwan, and the U.S. out in Venezuela right now. There's too many movements, too much going on. NATO is absolutely saber rattling, in my opinion, with all of the news articles coming out saying that Russia could attack NATO at any moment. Germany wants to spearhead NATO. We've got these huge budgets and these increased budgets for war games and war machines. There's so much going on with the geopolitical aspect, but also the environment right now with the atmospheric rivers, the extreme flooding, the earthquakes, the fires. I mean, it's like, wow, welcome to Revelation. So the 16 hours and 16 minutes rotation of 3i Atlas is also pretty interesting, because when you read Revelation 16:16, a very significant, like one of the most significant verses in Revelation about Armageddon, the battle of Armageddon. That's what it's talking about. It's talking about describing all the world leaders gathered together for this battle, referred to as the Battle of Armageddon. And he gathered them together to the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. Then the verse follows the pouring out of the sixth bowl, which dried the Euphrates River to prepare for the way the kings from the east and demonic spirits gathering rulers for the final battle. The name itself means Mountain of Megiddo, referencing the ancient battle site of Megiddo in Israel, symbolizing a great decisive war between good and evil. And in its final assembly before the ultimate confrontation and judgment of God's enemies, culminating in the great earthquake described in the following verses, Revelation 16, 17, and 18. Let's read that. Now, the King James version, to me, I'm not a big fan of, because it's like, well, anyway, I'm not a fan of the King James version. Let's go to the actual literal translation as best as possible. Here we go. And the seventh messenger. No, that's 17. Let's go. It started at 16. Actually, we'll start at Revelation 15. And look, I am not a religious person, but I find scriptures fascinating. I've been studying Revelation now for, 30 years. And I've read Revelation, I don't know how many times. And I've been able to take a lot of the biblical scriptures back to ancient Sumer and Babylon. So a lot of scriptures that predate the Bible have a lot more details in them. And you can tell that a lot of these scriptures, they actually took from other records and scriptures from previous dates and then added it to this canon, the biblical canon. So a lot of these scriptures are actually talking about astrological events and astrotheology. You can actually read through a lot of these scriptures, and then if you understand the zodiac and you understand how certain scriptures reference the zodiac, then it makes a lot more sense oftentimes. So let's read this. And I saw another sign in heaven, great and wonderful. 7 messengers have the 7 last plagues, because in these was completed the wrath of God. And I saw as a sea of glass mingled with fire, and those who do gain the victory over the beast and his image and his mark, the number of his name, standing by the sea of the glass, having harps of God. Well, wait, I want to go to 16 here. All right. Here we go. And I heard a great voice. Here's 16:16. Why am I bringing this up if you're just joining us? Interstellar comet 3i Atlas rotates 16 hours and 16 minutes, 16:16. So I wanted to read Revelation 16:16. And I heard a great voice out of the sanctuary saying to the 7 messengers, go away and pour out the vials of the wrath of God to the earth. Then we go to 16 down here. And they did bring them together to the place that is called in Hebrew Armageddon. And the 7th so that's 16:16. So that would be the verse, 16:16 in Revelation. Then after that, it says, and the 7th messenger did pour out his vial to the air, and there came forth a great voice to the air. Interesting. And there came forth a great voice from the sanctuary of the heaven, from the throne, saying, it hath come. Well, tomorrow, it's going to be at its closest approach to Earth. It's still going to be approximately 2 astronomical units away, but it will make its closest approach to Earth tomorrow. Then it goes on to say, and there came, and I'm referring to 3i Atlas, and there came voices and thunders and lightnings, and a great earthquake came, such as came not since men came upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake, so great. And it came, the great city, into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations did fall, and Babylon the great was remembered before God. Babylon, huh? To give to her the cup of the wine of the wrath of his anger. And every island did flee away, and the mountains were not found. That's one hell of an earthquake. So no pun intended. So that's why I find it very interesting when you study scriptures and how oftentimes comets are harbingers of doom, but they're also bringers of life. We need to remember that. I've heard that 3i Atlas could be a starter pack. It could be the destroyer of worlds. It could also be a starter pack. I like the starter pack. Let's go with the starter pack. So that's what I have for news today, ladies and gentlemen. But now let's get into the giant structure beneath the Bermuda Triangle. This is very interesting. Live science. Scientists have identified a massive anomalous geological structure deep beneath Bermuda, composed of unusual mantle material, not found elsewhere in the region. This could be remnants of an ancient tectonic process or a plume-related feature dating back tens of millions of years, scientists say. The structure helps explain why Bermuda's long-standing geological uplift and Earth still holds major unknowns beneath our feet. On the war front, European leaders are moving towards using frozen Russian state assets to back loans for Ukraine. Meanwhile, leaders of Russia or very high-level officials in Russia are saying that would be an act of war. But wait a second, I thought they were close to a peace agreement. Which is it? See, that's why I think that they're throwing out anything they can to contrast peace. Now, will we see peace with Russia and Ukraine in 2026? Probably not. Let's hope so, but probably not. So if this takes place, if Ukraine gets money from European leaders that basically are going to freeze Russian assets, sell these assets, and then use that money to give loans to Ukraine while they make profits off of the loan. Wow. Hello. Must be nice to be a bank. NATO-style guarantees and peacekeepers if this happens. So the U.S., then it goes on to say, another article, the U.S. and European leaders are discussing security guarantees for Ukraine without NATO membership, including peacekeepers authorized to repel attacks. This blurs the line between defensive support and direct involvement. So now you want to use UN peacekeepers, but keep them out of NATO? I don't know. Donald Trump also signaled potential interdiction or blockades of sanctioned Venezuelan oil shipments, a move that would dramatically escalate tensions in the Caribbean. Yeah, it's going on right now from the news that I've read. But Chevron, it's business as usual. While sanctions tighten, Chevron remains operational under special licenses, creating a two-tier energy system where some flows continue while others are choked off. And recently, CNN, read all about it, near collision aviation incident. An international flight experienced a near collision incident involving Venezuelan airspace, highlighting deteriorating aviation safety. The crown jewel, I think, is going to be the Panama Canal. China is pushing for greater control over strategic ports in Panama, which is a choke point for global trade. Negotiations have stalled and demands have increased. I think that we need to know more about the MIT professor that was recently killed. Rest in peace. An MIT professor affiliated with advanced plasma and fusion research was killed in a targeted shooting at his house. Police have ruled out random violence. What did he know that the powers that be do not want us to know? What was he working on that was so advanced? Because here's the interesting thing. It wasn't a burglary, they're saying. They say they don't think it was a burglary. It didn't appear to be a burglary. Well, maybe he had some type of schematics or information in his home that they targeted, but they left the rest of his stuff. That's the thought that came to my mind. And lawmakers are investigating whether artificial intelligence data centers and big tech energy contracts are driving up consumer electricity costs. Bernie Sanders is saying, let's put a halt to AI data centers. Meanwhile, Trump is all for technology and artificial intelligence in the most recent bill that passed that would take away states' rights for controlling artificial intelligence. It would be more under the federal government. In good news, though, cannabis reclassification. Trump is expected to reclassify cannabis, opening medical research and reshaping markets overnight. And also, I talked a little bit about how some endangered marine mammal populations are stabilizing and recovering due to conservation efforts. So that's what I have for you today. And in about 40 minutes, I'm going to be going live again with Bob Gilpatrick, and he is the founder of Boomer Boost. We're going to talk about the latest and greatest supplementation and how it could potentially help you substantially. I hope you have a beautiful day. I really appreciate you. If you do me a favor, if you would leave a comment in the comment section, if you would hit a like for the video, if you would share this video, if you would make sure you're subscribed to us here on YouTube, make sure the bell is click for all notifications and just check back daily for new content, because a lot of people don't get notifications, they say. And we're also on Rumble. We do live streams on Rumble. So please subscribe to us on Rumble. It's totally free. It'll take you about 90 seconds and you'll get notifications that way. We do exclusive content on Patreon. I just uploaded an amazing interview with Dr. Adam Rizvi. He is an ICU doctor, and he has had dozens of experiences with people as they're transitioning to the other side. And he talks about consciousness and how he sees consciousness being outside of the human body. It was a beautiful interview that I did with him. We have a lot of long format interviews on our Patreon page that are only available on Patreon, going back almost 10 years with amazing guests. So definitely check us out on Patreon. Your support helps Leak Project tremendously, and I really appreciate you, everybody. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Tomorrow's the day for 3i Atlas. So buckle up, buttercups. And I love reading through the comments. Real quick, I wanted to finish this out because I thought it was kind of funny. I was reading through some of the comments, and the other day I did a podcast where I mentioned that 3i Atlas was going to be at its closest approach, its closest to Earth tomorrow. And the way that I worded it, I guess this guy was not happy. He's like, oh man, you worded that wrong. It's not going to be close to Earth on the 19th. It's going to be at its closest approach to Earth on the 19th. You're clickbaiting. I will not recommend your videos. You're wrong. And I'm like, I just laughed at him. I put an LOL in the comment section. I said, thank you for clarifying, buddy. Like, dude, you need to chill out, buddy. Go outside, get some fresh air. Take a nice breath of fresh air. Enjoy the fresh air. And anyway, yeah, it was kind of ridiculous. So I had to vent. Have a beautiful day. Merry Christmas. Happy Blue Kachina Day.